How I define product is an opinionated solution to a problem. So whatever business problem you're trying to solve, you have conviction as to how it should be solved, and that becomes your product.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Westra, and I am thrilled for today's guest because we are tackling a major part of revenue operations for businesses. If you own or are involved in leading a company that is in a growth phase right now, you obviously think of things like marketing, you think of things like sales, you think about things like customer service, but do you think of your product development? I would dare say the majority of businesses out there fail to think about their product on a regular basis. They just assume that everyone is gonna love what they came up with first, and they're just gonna keep buying it. But a product specialist has very specific roles in a growth phase, and especially in your revenue operations. This interview is fantastic because we have a founder who has founded a company that we can't know anything about yet, which, is what it is. It's part of his agreement. But he has helped several businesses over the last decade with their product development and developing their market fit, their avatar fit, who is their right avatar, all the fun things that go along with product development. He has done, and this conversation is fantastic. If you are one of those founders or one of those leaders in an organization that has been paying too little attention to your product development, or maybe putting too much of that burden on your marketing or sales teams, listen to this episode and share it with your team. They need to know what it looks like from the eyes of a product specialist. So take a listen to this episode. We'll see you on the flip side. Share it with anyone that needs to hear it. This is a fantastic series. Can't wait to see you on the other side of the interview. Thanks. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Growth and Scaling Podcast. I'm excited today to introduce you to the man, the myth, the legend, Vahid. Vahid, tell us who you are and what do you do with your business?
Hey, Todd. So I'm Vahid Jozi. I have started my journey as a founder. Then I decided to become a career product manager for over a decade. There was a lot of companies that I worked on. And just recently, I decided to found or die. So I didn't want to die. So I joined a venture firm, venture studio in San Francisco and Miami called Atomic. And I'm building a company with them now.
Awesome. I'm curious how that actually works. I've actually mentored a lot of people in different communities like that. But tell me what this one is. It sounds like it's a little different style. What does Atomic do for founders or potential founders?
Yeah. So if you were to look at venture investing, VC, as like an asset class of everything else, it's like a single-digit percentage of all asset classes. I think last I checked, it's like 2-3%. Now, venture studios are a subset of that. So like a subset of a subset where they only invest in the companies they found. So it's not like an incubator. Incubator was like the classic model where you went to them and then they gave you resources, and there's a bunch of pitfalls with incubators. Venture studios build companies. They often hire or basically bring in founders like myself to actually help out in the validation scale and growth of the company. And Atomic is one of the larger ones. They've been around since 2012. Some of the companies are public, and some of the companies are they've made market debut, and there are a ton more that are in stealth, including mine.
Awesome. So stealth mode you are, but let's take a step back. Prior to your found or die a mission that you gave yourself, tell us about what you've been doing. You say product, and most people that kind of goes over their head. They're like, product, okay, what do you do? Package stuff for people? I mean, what do you do? What is a product team, and what is the role of what a product manager should be doing inside of a company?
I mean, great question. Super tough to answer. So the product we talk about is basically a technology product. And how I define product is an opinionated solution to a problem. So whatever business problem you're trying to solve, you have conviction as to how it should be solved, and that becomes your product. Every piece of the product, every interaction, every workflow, every user journey, those are all opinions. Those are all convictions. And a product manager is the person who not only facilitates those convictions, but actually leads with them. It's the person that says, based on this set of data or this logic or simply my storytelling and how passionate I am about it, this is the way we should build this part of the feature, or this is the solution we should provide to the problem that we have.
Right.
So just in a nutshell, like that would be what the product function would be. There's like
let's
product.
Get practical.
Go for it.
Yeah, let's get practical. Let's say, a company A launches their business based off a product, right? Generally, that product solves a problem, right?
Correct.
So when you think about a business that's not solving a problem really is likely to fail. So what you're saying in a very clear way to me, but maybe not clear to some people, is what you do is you help businesses identify more clearly the problem they're actually setting out to solve, and then doing what to that problem,
and how to solve it. So
and how to solve it.
Yeah, the how is the product.
Right.
The problem is like the business picks it. But how to solve it is exactly the product approaching the customer.
I love it.
And there's a very specific way that products tend to solve problems. And there's a wrong way and a right way. The wrong way is saying, hey, this is the business and we have a bunch of tools or we have a bunch of offerings, let's bring them and then give them choice. Done right, the entire user journey of the customer coming in, whether they touch whatever part of the company, their website, the salespeople, marketing folks, customer service, customer success.
So what are people doing wrong? I see people, when they found a company, they are set out to solve a problem, but they tend to have a common mistake. Every time I've gone into a company who's way beyond launch phase and they're in kind of a growth and strategy phase, more often than not, the problem is with product. Their growth is stagnant because they haven't reevaluated where their product's at, and is it still solving the problem that they set out to fix to begin with? How do you identify that, and how do you identify with that, and how do you help companies identify that they're just missing? They're missing the target now. Things have changed. So
very much identify with it. There's a false positive generally in this type of an event. So the value that the company promises ends up getting realized in the product. So when there's an issue with the product, oftentimes there are issues with products. That's normal. But you notice it when the value is supposed to be realized and it's not. So the customer's upset or they're churning and everything. So that's literally where you would notice if you're delivering the exact value you're promising or not. So there's a false positive that you notice it there. Just because you notice it there doesn't mean that's the issue. In my conviction, in my opinion, the main problem's around defining who the ideal customer is. So an ICP per se. A lot of times, like classically, an ICP is a type of company. Mind you, we're talking B2B companies here. That's the overlying assumption. The ICP is another company. This is generally how it's done. I believe that's way too reductive. It's a person at a company that is experiencing a pain and has exhibited a need and is either looking for you or doesn't know who you are to look for you. It's kind of a very large picture and it's very saturated. So this is a very high resolution image. And a lot of times it's not for companies.
Now back up 1 second, because you're throwing around ICP like everyone knows what that is. I certainly do, but I found that a lot of people don't even know that term. What is an ICP and how does that affect product?
Great question. The ICP is the group of people, it's an audience, it's a persona or a set of personas that has a hair on fire problem that your product solves. It's the people that are exhibiting the pain the most. It's the people that the second you give them the product, they feel relief, and if you take it away, they will cry. So like those are the folks who are looking for you. There's a marketing principle that says, instead of going and convincing people, go find people who are already convinced. These are folks who are already convinced of your value proposition.
I love it. Yes. That's a great definition, by the way. I'm going to hold on to that. Keep going. I love the hair on fire analogy.
So there's like ICP is also not just one audience. It's multiple audiences. You can force rank it. You can prioritize it based on population value, time to value, how much would they pay for this issue? How long would they need the solution? All of these. And then you get to force rank it based on which ones do you want to actually go for. So product is the other side of a go-to-market strategy. This is another issue where like they notice issues in the product, but hey, what was the issue in the go-to-market strategy anyway? The motion that brought people forth, users forth to the product, was that motion correct? Was that motion smooth? Was that motion clear? Or did you just bring them and then like, hey, how does this look? And like they kind of got shocked. So I love where you're going with this, and I honestly think that this is like, for those listening who are in a growth or wanting to get into more of a growth scaling stage of your business, this is something you have to be paying attention to all the time. How often, do you encourage your founders that you work with to reevaluate their product lineup? Because I think it's something that they do far too irregularly. So maybe not the lineup all the time, but I always push, whether I'm on the board or I'm an investor or just my own companies, is to reevaluate your assumptions as to who you're targeting. So, and who the product's targeting, and what your content is targeting, and what your UVP, unique value proposition is targeting. And then again, it's like the value chain starts with the ICP down. So I always ask them, how do you actually line this up? That when it gets to the product suite, the portfolio of the products, is how do you combine these together to actually create a graduation path for the user? Some of them might only want to use 10% of it, some only use 90% of it, but they don't want to pay. That's when the product suite and like how you position the product suite actually comes alive. But you should always get to know your users constantly. It's like you have a partner and you should always get to know each other because you keep on changing. Well, your customers are people. The businesses are just a group of people. They keep changing. And if you say, hey, this is how I want to, look, we hit the gold mine and we're just going to keep on mining it. That's what BlackBerry thought too. And not many people know what that is anymore.
BlackBerry, Blockbuster. Yep. That's what happens. Hey there, friends. Todd Westra here. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode. But I also want to take just a few seconds to let you know about a project that we've been putting together for the last several months, and we're finally launching it, called the Captain's Council. You see, as a CEO or operator of a business, it can feel like you get stuck in your own head a lot of the time. You get challenges that you don't know how to resolve. You get people causing problems in your leadership team that you don't know how to resolve, and it's so hard to overcome those things by yourself. You don't have to anymore. Join the Captain's Council. Captain's Council is a group of other CEOs and operators and owners of businesses where we come together once a month for several hours to discuss the biggest challenges you're facing. You express to the council of 8 to 10 people about what's going on. Where do you feel stuck? And these other people are in the same boat as you. They're running and operating their own businesses. They're your peers. They help you kind of dissect what's happening and help you see things that you may not have seen all by yourself. If you don't have a good, strong network of people around you, come join the Captain's Council. This is going to be something that will change the way you run your business and open your eyes to opportunities that you have never seen without the help of your peer group. Come check it out, captainscouncil.com.
Exactly.
That's a great analogy. It's a great definition. I love where you're going with this. And truthfully, those listening, pay attention to this, because I promise you that launch is interesting. Everybody's launch is a little bit different. And oftentimes when you're launching a business, you are creating product on the fly just based off of immediate feedback of your marketing. When you're in a growth phase, you've got to evaluate where you're at from what you talked about from a foundational point. What stuff can you eliminate that's just wasting resources? And which stuff do you do really well? And I think that there's two factors, and I know you're going to lead into this. One is, of the clients that you've actually onboarded, which ones do you actually like? Which ones do you not like? And how do you separate them and retarget to the ones you really like? Is there a process that you use to do that?
Yeah, it's the classic double diamond. It's the design thinking problem. So in every phase you do exploration, and then you pare it down again. So At the beginning of the company, you're like, we directionally know where we're going, but we don't know exactly what the image looks like. So you try a lot of stuff. And then you notice, and then you prune it down based on, is it valuable? Are they sticking around? So churn, and are we getting more of these folks of population? And then you're like, okay, these folks, this audience really resonates with us. And then the second diamond starts. What do they care about the most? So then you get another set, and then you still reduce it again. You're like, okay, but these 4 things that they care about the most is like the most valuable, the most profitable, or the most impactful. And we're gonna just like dig into those. So this double diamond flow happens at every stage of a company. Whenever you feel like you hit it right, you're like, okay, now we have to go through it again. Let's converge again, see if we are understanding the signal correctly. Let's go on the edges of it. Let's go on the fringes and be like, all right, are we actually seeing value drop, or no? This is a whole other paradigm that we actually did. And did we just break into an unknown basically? So this needs to keep going, and this gets at the beginning of this life of a company. This is easy. This is like not that high risk.
Totally.
At a growth stage, your whole goal is compounding. You want to build compounding, you want to mine compounding, and you just never want to disrupt compounding. So if you actually make an error and you actually like reduce your compounding effect, or the products compounding, but there are other factors or other user groups that were feeding this. Let's assume it's like a marketplace basically. Then all of a sudden you could get into a negative network effect. Like just everything just evaporates.
Totally agree.
At a growth stage,
I've seen it.
Whole different game.
Yeah, I've seen it happen, and I see quite frequently, and I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen it happen to where I've walked into businesses, looked at their financials, and said, all right, so show me, from what I see on social media and everywhere you're present with your ads, you're always talking about this product. Show me that that's your number one revenue generator. Right. And in almost every case, they're blowing so much spend on the products that make them the least amount of money. And they're not focusing on the things that are actually in demand, but maybe not quite as sexy. You know what I mean? How do you help a founder see that focus on where their money is, not on where you want the money to be? Right.
As a typical product answer, it depends, right? There are areas where marketing a feature, let's reduce it to this, a feature that is not directly attributed to revenue could be beneficial. Right. That's not a lot of cases. Those are very rare cases. So that needs to be attributed to revenue. That is bringing in an audience or a persona that the whole network actually gets to value a lot. So in those cases, absolutely. But those are rare. Those are very rare. Those are exceptions. Most of the time, your business, the part that actually generates most of the value is the unsexy bit. As an investor, love unsexy companies. As a founder, love solving unsexy problems that people are like, they feel so much pain about, but it's just not sexy enough for us to go and solve. So you kind of have to have this like sexy, unsexy lens onto a lot of the bits. And you segment based on highest value, highest repeat usage, and sexiness. And the one that has least sexy, highest value, highest repeat usage, that's probably the core of your product. That's probably the core of your business.
I'm envisioning in my mind a nice little Gantt chart here, as some kind of a chart that's showing sexy on one line and actually profitable on the other line, and these axes are generally not going to be, out here on the right. They're going to be close to profitable or close to sexy, and rarely are they the same thing.
100%. It has to do with like human psychology as well. If it's sexy, more people will flock to it. If it's sexy, then like immediate gratification is way more present when you solve it, when you interact with it. When it's not sexy, it's the opposite. You need delayed gratification, which is kind of like the basis of wisdom in general.
I love it.
The unsexy businesses or unsexy parts of a company are the ones that are actually solving a more longer term, longer horizon problem. Right. And if it's sexy, you might actually be the coolest app on the market right now solving that problem, but give it 2 days, you'll be the 98th of 100 because like other ones came out, and guess what? They're probably sexier too. Okay,
let's take a step back because I think we've had this amazing conversation on product. I think that the majority of the people out there listening to this who are transitioning from launch to growth and scaling phase, they are thinking about this conundrum of, okay, I'm the founder, or I work really closely with the founder, or I'm on the leadership team, and we've just started siloing. And by siloing, I mean, we've got a sales team, we've got a marketing team, we've got a product team, and we've got a customer success team, and we're all focused on revenue. Like we're all part of what you might call the RevOps team. But how does product fit? How should a product manager fit? And what does that role look like in the instance of, say, these other 3 or 4 silos in a company? Where should their role be? What do you see as the extents of where they should be playing?
Right. So there's a vantage point problem here. So just want to state that I'm taking the vantage point of a product.
Yeah. Yeah. Hit me.
So sales is selling the promise of the product.
Okay.
So like you have to make sure that you can actually deliver on that promise. How it delivers on the promise. Like how far it delivers on the promise. A lot of times in sales conversations, roadmap is brought up. Okay, like if you have this feature, we'll get into it. And then you get into the classic debacle of salesperson promise something, product person says, oh no.
Totally.
Marketing brings people on with the same premise that our product does this is the value it brings, and like you're kind of singing it off the rooftops that this is what you would get should you interact with the product. It's for a product company, everything is an extension of the product. Product is where the value gets realized. So the horror stories of these teams are not aligned, and then things blow up, or you need to keep on having processes and endless meetings of disclosure and pitch decks to be like, this is what we did.
Totally.
We've heard a lot of those stories, and there are other companies that they're so in sync that the team's small, that you get teams where there's only a few dozen people, but then they're pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, and they're basically in sync. So when the go-to-market strategies come up with marketing content, all these strategies are set up, you kind of have a strategy committee and a product strategist, or the person representing product strategy, oftentimes the CEO, most of the time the CEO at early stages, they also have a very strong voice. Everything cascades from that down.
I love it. I think you just defined a really good outline for most people out there. I think too often, and it's kind of a sad thing, but too often someone sets out to go start a business and they really are a great idea person. They're a great go-to-market strategist, and they think they nailed it. And sometimes when they do nail it, they get flustered after they're kind of launched, and they think, holy crap, I'm making money now and I can afford to pay awesome people around me. They start building out the team, but then they get flustered primarily with product. And you've really helped a lot of people today. I really do believe that you have given us some great definition as to what that role should look like. The fact that there are people like you out there who are very geared towards just product development and making sure that it fits. What do you tell a founder who's out there and their whole focus has been, okay, now that we're making money, I just need a sales guy and I need someone to push my ads. What do you tell them about the importance of having that product guy in their team?
I mean, so the first thing I tell them is that you're the product person. If you think you don't need it, you're wrong, because you are playing that part, and it's most of your job, by the way.
Right.
I've mostly been, for any company I've joined, I've generally been the first product person. So it's like you go through a transition of, hey, leader,
founder,
like let's transition this to me, and there's a balancing act. There's a lot of there's a lot of stories one can sing on this. The main bit on this is like there's a bunch of principles. At this stage, there's a bunch of principles. First of all, your default answer is no. So this is the easy one. The default answer is no whenever a request comes in or whenever a modification is coming in. Product managers, there's age-old thing of a good product manager, bad product manager. Bad product manager builds, good product manager builds a little. So for a product person in that kind of an environment, you want to listen most. So, like let's say one major release of the product's gone out. Now there's a go-to-market motion. That product manager should probably sit in customer success at that point.
Yeah.
They just need to learn and hear and get the feedback. Exactly. They need to have frequent conversations with sales, with marketing, where there are a ton of tools that extract insights from it.
Right.
They basically need to be the absorber of all the knowledge and then take all the knowledge and act on 2% of it. So like a very tiny fraction of it. If this role doesn't exist, it's very quickly where the market needs changes, like very quickly within like months.
Right.
User needs change, or they just haven't been, like a user makes it a feature request and no answer's been given. Totally. You start seeing like lagging churn across it. Totally. The exception to this is micro SaaS. There's a very tiny exception to this, and that's micro SaaS apps, but by definition, they don't scale. They're not built to scale. Right.
Oh, I love this. Honestly, I think we could keep this conversation going for a solid couple hours. This has been a really, really solid podcast episode, though. I think that the focus, and to be honest, I think everybody out there listening is probably wondering what your top secret company is. And when you're ready to share it, we'll get you back on for another episode to kind of launch or talk about what you're launching right now. But I'm so grateful for all the insights you've given us today. It's really fascinating. I think it's an element of growth and scaling that most founders ignore because they are the product person. But when they do finally grasp onto the idea of, holy crap, there's people that think like me out there who are willing to come in and just help me refine what we created and make it better for the client, what the feedback is. What do you recommend as a first step for them? And then let's close off with some remarks.
Absolutely. So one of the main activities a product manager does, this is like the top principle, is speak to users or speak to people. Right. So for a founder who is at that stage that believes or has an inkling that they might actually need somebody on product, the best thing to do is to go and talk to folks who are either embodying that role or to founders who have decided to bring on a person like that. So just to get a more saturated view of the problem. Chances are you need somebody, you just don't know exactly what they are. Right. And hiring a product manager, especially the first one, is extremely tough. You are now, you're bringing on like almost a nanny for the product. Like this person's going to spend the most time, like the product being your baby, this person's going to help it grow now. It's not going to grow like you anymore. They're going to grow like the product.
It's sending them out to preschool a little bit.
Exactly. Here's a sage teacher, editor. Editor is usually the best word that you're picking for your baby. So you really need to get to know them. Like spend a lot of time talking to a lot of folks. Product managers are like, we're chatterboxes. So there could be a false positive that like, oh, this person sounds great, let's bring him on. Right. Like letting go of a product manager is also a very tough thing. So take your time. Do the interviews and really go through.
Fantastic. Now, I ask every one of my guests to give a shout out to somebody who's inspired them, and generally it's someone that you know, someone that's really helped kind of guide you down the path you're on right now. Is there someone out there you'd like to give a shout out to that has inspired you to take the action you're on right now?
Absolutely. There's a friend of mine. His name is Sean Power. He currently is in Canada. So you can find him at Sean, SEAN Power, exactly how you'd say power, on
Love
Twitter. When I was sharing the point that I got in life that I wanted to found or die, he not only encouraged me, he said, if you ever feel your conviction just waning, call me. And on that one line, I never looked back.
I love that.
So shout out to Sean Power.
If you don't have a mentor like Sean out there, or someone who is inspiring you to keep going in your business, find one. Find one now. Become part of a community of other fellow founders. Find some peers who can motivate you, because it is a lonely job. It is a lonely position to be in as founder, and most employees will never understand the great weight that you bear as a founder. So find that mentor. Sean, thanks for being that guy. And we look forward to seeing all of you on the next episode. But thank you so much, Vahid, for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, what did you think of that conversation? Honestly, I loved it. It inspired me. It made me happy. It made me feel good. Warm fuzzies. I don't know why that is. I guess it's because I love product development so much. For me as a founder, one of my favorite things about founding a company is product development. And it's something that I take very personal. I take it very passionately. Whenever I'm developing products, my wife can tell I'm in one of those moods, and I'm creating, I'm developing, I'm talking to people, I'm finding out what people want. And it's just a fun stage of growth and scaling. When you're in growth and scaling mode, you have to take time to evaluate your product. You know, our company does a series as part of our consulting platform that literally dives into every product we've launched over the last 3 years. I highly recommend you talk to one of our people, find out a little bit more about what we do at Moku to help people understand the importance of their product development and how you can make it better moving forward. Real growth comes when your product still fits the needs of your prospective clients. So if your prospective client has changed and you haven't changed product, change your product. If you have totally different views, responses coming back in your customer service department from your existing clients, change your product. There are things you can do to modify, tweak, and bend your product right now that will increase happiness of your clients and the success of your sales team if you just listen to the right people and the right voices. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to our channel, share it with people that need to hear this stuff. These are great experiences being shared by amazing founders, and I hope that it affects you and the way you're running your business. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next episode.